So Steve Bannon is the subject of a new New York Times story, long overdue, and there'll be more as reporters go through the Epstein files and start to describe in some context the stories of Bannon's of Epstein's connection to various people. Steve is very connected to Bannon. Relatively recent vintage, according to the New York Times story. They started communicating after President Trump was elected, but that their relationship from 2017 to 2019 was pretty, I don't know, pretty intense. Uh, Here's the headline of the New York Times story. I think we have it. Maybe we don't. Do we have it?
We do.
We do. All right, Sam, if you could put that up. Here it is. Just ran this afternoon. Despite Epstein's toxicity, Steve Bannon stood by him, texts indicate. Subhead: Mr. Bannon, a MAGA podcaster, developed a seemingly chummy relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, who was accused of sex trafficking. He said it was in the name of getting Epstein to open up. In that context, he did 16 hours of interviews with Steve Bannon, 2 hours of which are on the internet, released as part of the Epstein files, as the New York Times story points out. Not really clear why the other hours were not part of what was released. Steve says he's making a documentary with the stuff and that the documentary's been delayed by going to prison and other things that have kept Steve from sitting in the edit room and getting it done. Um, uh, One of the things that's happened a little bit under the radar, and I was surprised this hasn't been written up in the New York Times and elsewhere. There are people in MAGA, very, very pro MAGA people, including uh, some of Steve Bannon's enemies, like Roger Stone and others, who have been really just railing on Steve as if he's Larry Summers or Bill Clinton, as if he's a Democrat, saying this guy's ties to Epstein suggest that he should be canceled. And so this is an intra MAGA dispute. There's nothing in the Epstein files that shows Steve broke the law. But if you're looking at people like Larry Summers and the head of Hyatt today, Mr. Pritzker, who had to step down as head of the board, many people have lost things, lost positions and social standing simply for being chummy with Epstein, with no evidence of law breaking or knowledge of his behavior, although in contact with them after his guilty plea and imprisonment in Florida. Emily, what is going on with MAGA and Steve Bannon? Why has he survived so far? But also, why are some members of MAGA going hard after him?
I have a lot of thoughts on this, Mark. Bannon, to morally cleanse himself of this, will have to deliver some type of serious investigative documentary at some point, because I do imagine that's why some people are continuing to give him a bit of grace. The only other possibility that might explain why some people are giving him a little bit of grace is that he was working in an intelligence capacity. Not entirely impossible, but I have been immersed in these emails since the library got its 3 million drop a couple of weeks ago. And Mark, you and I both know this as journalists, you can tell when sometimes a message leaks and someone is doing a little bit of source management, gassing up a source, trying to get something out of them. That's not what Epstein's doing. He is openly, I'm sorry, that's not what Bannon's doing with Epstein. They're openly colluding and strategizing on the populist movement internationally, on Trump himself. At one point, Epstein tries to get him to co-opt Jared Kushner sort of into the populist right. Epstein was not a populist conservative, so what he thought this was doing, nobody really knows. There are all kinds of follow-on mysteries about this, but there, if he can deliver, then he can get away with some type of source management explanation, maybe. But the big picture here is I don't think people realize how significant this is for MAGA, because Steve Bannon since 2015 has been the tether between Trump, the conservative movement, and the actual grassroots base. And Trump knows the base better than anybody because it's his base, but Trump doesn't always care about the base. And Bannon is the guy in the conservative movement who has always cared about the base because it was kind of, you could see it cynically or you could see it sincerely. It's his meal ticket. That's sort of his existence, is that he understands the populist movement in the United States and internationally. So to lose Bannon and to lose War Room would be a huge handicap for the actual MAGA movement post-Trump. So there's a real cost and weight. I would say he's sort of a load-bearing pillar on the right.
What does Steve do, and what a War Room do? And I call him Steve because I know him. I don't want to dissemble about the fact that I've had a lot of dealings with the guy over the years. What does Steve and War Room do that are, if not unique, or at least special in the context of MAGA? Because there's lots of podcasts, MAGA podcasts.
Yeah, it's something our colleagues in Washington and New York don't fully appreciate, Mark, which is that War Room is enormously popular. I mean, has an audience that a primetime host on Fox News had, between the clips and the people who listen to the podcast regularly. I would say competitive with Hannity, if not even more influential than Hannity. So he's a voice that is throughout the day, covering politics from a genuine populist perspective. And that is so rare. There are a lot of populist posers, but I think what makes Bannon powerful and popular and influential, not just that he's linked up with all kinds of different foreign MAGA movements, or not MAGA, but foreign populist right movements, but that's definitely part of it. But man, if you talk to people on the Hill, they're afraid of War Room. They're genuinely afraid of War Room, like people would have been afraid of Bill O'Reilly, maybe 20 years ago, going after them on primetime. And it's because the types of people that go and make phone calls at the party county headquarters. I'm from Waukesha County, so the people that are in there making phone calls in the Waukesha County Republican Party headquarters, those are the people that are listening to War Room. And that matters a ton because Bannon will zero in on AI. He'll zero in on a border bill. He'll zero in on a
Right.
piece of legislation. And if you talk to people on the Hill, they'll say, when War Room goes after a bill, we get calls. When War Room tells people to call, we're flooded. So there aren't a lot of people who have that power anymore.
Now, Steve is on bad terms with some people, but he was on very good terms with Charlie Kirk, as far as I know, right?
Yes, that's true.
And obviously, Turning Point has influence too, particularly when Charlie was still alive. They're going after Steve Bannon not just for his MAGA, for his Epstein ties. They're also going after him for saying he's a hypocrite because he Goldman Sachs guy and consorting with Epstein and all these incredibly wealthy people and living a very life of charter flights and fancy dinners, but then posing as a populist. And then they're also going after him to say he's a con artist, that these things for which he was arrested were instances in which he was just trying to make a lot of money. That he pretends to be a true believer in righteous causes, but in fact it's all just a Ponzi scheme to make money. What do you make of those two lines of argument? That he's an elitist and a con man.
Being a class trader is pretty central to Steve Bannon's origin story. So that I don't think that's new. I don't think that's there's novel concern about that. I do, though, as somebody who considers himself kind of a populist conservative,
Yeah.
go through these messages and genuinely wonder what Ben actually believes. And I've really never thought that to myself before. Like, why, you can tell he's trying to push Epstein in certain directions, in a populist direction, and he's openly doing that in the emails. It was sort of like their little joke, one of their little jokes back and forth. So, like, he's trying to nudge Epstein to being a real, like, MAGA populist. But to bounce so much stuff off of Jeffrey Epstein, it doesn't make a ton of sense, especially because I don't know, Mark. I don't know how many of the emails you've gone through. Having gone through a lot of them, Epstein didn't have a ton of relationships that were as intimate and friendly as his one with Bannon. Like, they were
Yeah.
constantly pinging each other in a very casual and
Yeah.
very friendly way.
Yeah. Although very little of it is freighted at all with sexuality.
Yep.
It's about going to the doctor and logistics of traveling and introducing each other to people, but primarily for intellectual stuff or movement stuff, not to make a buck.
Right.
So you're right that they're very friendly, but they seem on topics to be, if Epstein were not Epstein, but he was just some rich guy, it would seem like not an abnormal relationship. One more
Well,
topic, and
that's the
then
thing that makes me. Sorry, Mark. I was just gonna say that's the thing that makes me wonder if one or both was surveilling the other or just intelligence gathering on the other. I don't know. I've
Totally.
no idea, but that's almost what it feels like.
Totally. Cozy Earth, one of our great sponsors, would like to give you 20% off everything on the site. If you've not tried any products from Cozy Earth, today would be a good day to do it. Try the towels, the sheets, the bubble cuddle blanket, the pants, anything you want, t-shirts. It's all the same. It's all high quality, very affordable, particularly with the 20% off discount. And it'll change your life. You will say, I can't believe I never had this blanket or I never had these towels. You'll probably throw away at least some of your old stuff because you'll say, there's no comparison. My life has changed in a fundamental way. Go to CozyEarth.com. Use the promo code 2WAY for 20% off everything on the site. Bubble Cuddle Blanket is one of my recommendations in particular, and of course the pants. Refresh your routine with a comfort that makes every day feel like a new year. Again, I still don't really know what that means, but apparently you want every day to feel like a new year. Go right now to CozyEarth.com. Use the promo code 2WAY for 20% off everything in the site. CozyEarth.com, promo code 2WAY.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the 2WAY community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and 2WAY tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.